Today's guest is someone who lived through this reality and he has worked tirelessly to transform it. Alaa, Alaa is the director of Localized Action. It's a grassroots-centered organization which works amidst the Syrian crisis. He's a community mobilizer, a mentor to local organizations, and someone who believes the greatest resources in any broken place are the people still willing to care. So, from mobilizing youth in war torn cities to building informal economies which are rooted in trust and necessity, Alaa shows us that real enterprise doesn't begin with the capital, it begins with community. And that's what he's worked all his life. And that's when international aid system, which we often see, falls short. So it's the local action, not the imported solution, that carries people forward. Alaa, it's a pleasure to have you on board.
Thank you so much for this great session. I'm so happy and it's my pleasure to be with you in this episode.
Thank you, Alaa. So let's start with the early days of the Syrian crisis. I can see the Syrian flag behind you. Now, I'm not talking about, I don't want to start this discussion with the policy level picture. You know, what I want to talk about and begin our conversation, again, we'll have opportunity to go further into it, but what life looked like on the ground, for you when you saw, when the formal system really stopped working, you saw the institution collapse around you. What did the people actually do? So can you share a moment or a project, whichever you were part of, that showed that how the local people, how they're building from the ruins, basically?
Yes. Thank you for your question. Let me start with one story based on my experience. I often share, comes from the early years of the war in Syria or the crisis in Syria. Like in one town where was the formal governance collapsed and aid was cut off due to security risk.
Mm-hmm.
Then community members formed what they called a people committee, and they established something like people committee. They were not the trained professionals, just like a neighbor boards, teachers, engineers, doctors who joined as a volunteer in this committee. They mapped out vulnerable families, negotiate with local actors for credit-based food delivery, and organized a makeshift health station using by the WhatsApp or any digital. In the beginning of the crisis, we had a limited channel on our digital tools. So it just was a WhatsApp group, and they started to donate and collect donation from the people, diaspora, to support by the food and health. Because if we want in general speak about any crisis, it should be the response from the local community.
Yeah.
We cannot wait the donor or interagency to take action for that. So, and based on this story, no one gave them, the committee, no one gave them permission. No one came to assess.
Okay.
Because interagency started to assess. But the committee, they function better than many coordinated mechanisms or coordinated systems. I have seen informal cluster, because unfortunately, formal cluster under interagency or UN agencies takes a long time to start the response. So by this time, we can lose many people. And we have many people under the war and under the rest. And based on this experience, that showed me that when systems fail, it's not the absence of capacity. To be honest, it's not the absence of capacity, it's the reconfiguration of it. And here, people build anyway with whatever tools are left, and usually with more agility and care than we give them credit for this response. And one story based on that, in 2019, when the previous Syrian regime attacked Zawiya mountain, we faced a lot of people in street, in a way, without shelter, without any food, without any aid. So we mobilize the youth, and by the youth and volunteer network, we succeeded to provide 5,000 shelter for 5,000 family with zero cost. With zero cost, just depending on the youth and community resources. But for sure, before that, we had a lot of stages to train youth, to move, to support them to organize. And in that time, I remember the co-coordinator for the OCHA hub in Gaziantep, who was responsible to operating and overseeing the OCHA project in the north West Syria. He invited us, and he thanks us, and he directly support our organization in that time for $2 million to support the people after this success story. So if we want to speak about any response, it came from the local community when the system as usual changed.
This was all local action, all mobilized from the localized context. And you mentioned about the youth, the power of youth as well. Now, this was done to a great effect. And how long did this project actually sort of saw you taken into effect, or, impact on the ground?
Yes, as you know, in the beginning, youth or young people, male or female, play a crucial role, not just only in the emergency response, but also to build their future community. They're also self-resilience. And we, to be honest, started this project to support the Syrian NGO in 2017. And we spent 1 year to support the youth and organize the volunteer groups under one network. It's called now the Syrian Youth Volunteer Network, which include around 3,000 volunteers split in different groups and different background. But again, they joined a lot of the training, especially in the emergency response, first aid, psychosocial support, and also security. So they're like in the ground.
Okay. I mean, this is a brilliant example. So we can say that you work with people, and especially, when you talk about it, you work with people who never label themselves as innovators or entrepreneurs, but they are actually solving the problems a lot faster than the formal actors we are talking about. Isn't that? So again, when you speak about that particular individual, donating a large sum of money, that the action of that money wouldn't have been possible without some of these individuals who are working on the ground with you.
To be honest, we need both. I mean here, for community resources and also for the global fund. But why? I think that will give us more credit to build our sustainability. I mean, in the fragile context. But again, working with youth, it's not easy. We need the skills to working with youth, and we should aim And that was our aim in the Syrian context, to localize community resilience by youth and young people and empower them to lead humanitarian assistance and also support them to lead the peace building initiatives in the community. And here we are talking about the Nexus programming. I mean, in the end, for this, we can consider youth as the bridge between the humanitarian system and the
and the
community.
solution. Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah. So again, I mean, for those of us who live in the Western world and who see a very formal process all the time, or who are used to seeing formal, from small things to big things, would you say that you had a structure to this at all when you did this? How did people sort of come around it, or was it fully improvised from the ground?
Yes, for sure. And for the global, we have structure.
Yeah.
And also for the local, we have structure. But again, if we want to support them to lead and to have ownership about that, the first important thing they should have and adopt the strategic thinking about their response, about their emergency response and the crisis. So, and here for the enterprise, and as you know, in a fragile setting, the word enterprise doesn't mean, for the local, doesn't mean a profit or startups, as you know.
Yes.
It means resource fluence, rooted in care. I have seen displaced woman in northern Syria start a soup making initiative just using leftover humanitarian hygiene kit.
Okay.
Yes, and that not to sell soup, but to sustain dignity and support other women who had lost everything. In the first time, they didn't know this is enterprise. They in that time they don't know that something in the concept of enterprise.
Enterprise, yes.
But they did it, to be honest.
Yeah.
For not to profit or start up, just to sustain dignity and support other women who had lost everything. I have seen youth-led groups embrace solar system, to just have a maintenance for one camp, by a volunteer group, not for business, but so people could stay connected here. To loved ones, right?
Yeah. I mean, their objective is very different to what they are trying to do. And again, it's coming from the heart, it's coming for the community, and it's coming for survival, basically. It's not about making profit. But again, the question comes down to the fact that doing anything like that and to sustain that, because again, some of these camps have been ongoing for a very, very long time. You see the Arab Spring, we're talking about almost 2 decades now, but the problems have not been solved. So when people do something like that, do you find any evidence of a structure to that? Do you find any evidence of, or is it more sort of an improvisation as they go along their journey?
Yes. And we can see today, many initiatives is started started based on a small fund or grant in 2018.
Okay.
But again, we should be careful when we will support them. I mean, here, we should not take decision on behalf of them. They need just to support them by some skills, especially for strategic thinking, innovative thinking, critical thinking, solve a problem, And the most important things, how should we have social awarenesses
Okay. Yeah.
to build their sustainability with their community?
So when you talk about the social awareness, are we talking about people? And again, this is where the clash of two systems comes into play. So we are talking about the humanitarian systems, the policies, and the designs which are coming from outside, and it is clashing with an existing thing on the ground, which is being driven by the local individuals. So is it a case where adjustments have to be made from an outsider perspective to make sure that we blend in? And when I say we, I'm talking about the Western system. We blend in to those on the ground to make sure it is working.
Both. But again, we should not take their space or to be on behalf of them.
Okay.
Because they should work based on their identity.
Identity,
right?
Yes.
And to be honest here, and especially for if we want to also mention social capital, a trust and relationship are often worth more than money here. To build sustainability and build a clear structure.
And I'm so glad you mentioned about trust, because when everything is sort of completely shattered and broken, and in cases like this, we are seeing all around us right now, what's happening in Gaza, what's happening in Syria, Lebanon, we could go to Sudan, And when you talk about the community, they're trying to put something together, which is often built on trust, right? I mean, trust is the most important part of it. So, do you think external stakeholders, people sitting in Germany, people sitting here in the United Kingdom, or even in the United States of America, when they come in with a solution, do they actually realize, or is there a realization on the ground that how trust is sort of really, really important and how it allows for building of that relationship before anything can be solved on the ground?
To be honest, and as I work and also working with global and local stakeholders, it's based on the people, to be honest. Some people or some agency or INGOs, regardless of their where is their headquarter, based on Germany or Sweden or regardless of that, some of them take this responsibility to build the trust with the community, but others not. And let me share also the bad experience here.
Yes, please.
Without mentioning the donor name. In one time in the past, we did and I participate in the need assessment with the discussion with one of the global donor. Okay. And I was the focal point of Syrian NGO in this meeting. But unfortunately, they didn't, for the donor, took anything as a priorities from the local community or local NGO. Even he did need assessment and collected a lot of information. And when we asked them about this point, he said, our policy and our strategy doesn't fit with the priority, and we should go with this. It's crazy. How we can build our trust? Why we went to the ground and asked our community what we want. But here also, on the other hand, we have another problem, to be honest. And this problem under the question, can our community give or express about their need by right way? Because sometimes the community or local community share their desires more than their needs. And here we will face a gap, right? So Also, here, the global community asks, how can I build the trust and start with trust process with the community? At the same time, they don't share their needs. They just show their desire. And here, we should support, again, the community to know how can they express about their need. How can they share the main problem, the root cases for this problem? How can we build that? So again, we need together to work to build this trust between external and internal.
So my question, I mean, when we're talking about building this relationship, again, coming from an outsider perspective, time matters, isn't it? Time is the most important sort of dimension here. When things are so bad on the ground and when things are so difficult on the ground, and you classed it as emergency. So I'm just sort of playing the devil's advocate here. How do you sort of you'll have some agencies coming in, making sure they've done their assessment, making sure they've embedded themselves, talk to the community, discuss their needs and wants and desires. But then you'll have some where they'll say, oh, you know what, we've got a year on this project. We want to run this project. We want to make sure we do what we've been asked to do. So how do you overcome that sort of, because I feel building a relationship is all about time. And you guys don't have time on the ground. So how best to overcome that? So is there an internal mechanism where you have got something ready on the ground? So when external agencies come in, you're like, look, this is what we are. This is where we are. Can you run with this? So that takes away the whole point of sort of, disregard in terms of building trust and relationship, if that makes sense.
Yes. And here we can also say, like, social capital is the real currency in the situation, right?
Yeah.
Right? So, and when I shared, when I share with you any things from our experience, for sure, it's not just happen directly, but for sure, after many mistakes, after a lot of things by the bad way, but after that, we learn and have this. So some of that in our work, we have realized that it's not only, for the trust and relationship to build that. It's not only it's not only infrastructure that sustains community. I hear back to the social capital.
Yeah.
To sustain our community, because, for example, if we want to ask 3 youth from different background, one of them has work, another doesn't have work, and last one has work and volunteer work, they can share a different perspective and viewpoint. Why? Based on their needs. Because the first things any community needs, food, then safe situation, then start to develop or build their community. And that's why we should invest in community lead committees.
Okay.
But in a reality. So to have them not just in the project cycle, but for everything, to lead everything, we should give them the ownership. We should support them to lead, an integrational leadership. And volunteer work, for sure, can play a crucial role for that, because in based on my experience, we spend around 5 years to build the full volunteer network to support their community. But you should still in touch with them, and they want to see actions, not just saying, not just conversation, as localization.
Yeah. And I think that's a great build of social capital working for 5 years in trying to mobilize a group of people who are very local, who are very contextualized, and more importantly, they are very motivated to solve the problems on the ground, which I feel is a great capital which could be utilized by foreign agencies to make sure that things gets done on the ground. But then have you seen, like, and again, I see your profile and, in terms of how you worked on both the sides. You worked on the community side, you worked on the donor side. But I'm sure you've come across situations where, again, we touched on it in terms of the trust and everything. But the, someone comes in with a very rigid framework, sort of, no, this is how it gets done. This is how we've done in Africa. This is how we've done in Middle East. This is how it'll get done here as well. So has that hampered the work, year-long work or 2 years, 3 years of work which you've been doing on the ground? And how do you overcome that? How do you sort of manage that situation?
For sure, we should be flexible and have flexibility and adapt it for any learning, and also have a lot of sessions just to listen for the community to see our mistakes and where we are. But again, here we are focusing on our conversation on the local. That for sure not mean we are blaming in our conversation global, for sure. But we just want to see where are the power and resources with the local.
Okay.
If we for any like party or any entity, if any entity wants to work with local and have a great impact, they should put in their mind the most important things. How can the local own again and lead the project? Because based on my experience, I was very happy when one of the volunteer team came to me and said, Alaa, why you did that? It's our project.
Okay.
It's our project. In that time, I was the volunteer program manager with the Syrian NGO called Violet Syria. And actually, Violet Syria, who is the founder for this project, and they were funding this project. It's not good in the first time. It's not good to volunteer to say it's our project. But it's a great answers, to be honest, because here you can see yourself in the top. This is the success story when they own this project, but that for sure need time. That means when they have any mistakes, you don't blame them. You support them to learn, to teach, to grow step by step, to be with them, and to take responsibility. To take responsibility, to support them to join any global meeting, right?
Okay.
For sure. I was joined everything. Everything. But then I reached to this information. It's not good to me to be behalf of them. They should express. But how I reach for this information? In the regular meeting with them. All the time.
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah. So the question I have in terms of, you mentioned very briefly in terms of the power, the power. And also with these individuals, you realize that they don't have an understanding of how the external agencies work as well, isn't it? With the volunteers, and where does the power actually sit? Who should they go to? Who should they talk to? And how to really sort of shape themselves to be amongst that conversation. So if they are aware where the power sits, they can have that conversation with that individual or that group, and then accordingly push themselves forward, if that makes sense.
Yes. Sorry, your person. Could you repeat your question?
Yeah. So my question is, are these individuals on the ground, the volunteers, and some of the examples you've given, are they aware of where the power sits, not just within their community, but with the external agencies, where they can go and talk, where they can go and discuss, where they
Yes,
can sort of, assess their strength?
yes, but that needs also time. What
Okay.
I mean here, like for any group from the local community, you
Yeah.
need to support them to organize themselves and to support them by the great way. How can they express about themselves and share their concern, needs, and desire? Here, we should like take in our account their background and their story. I
Mhm.
mean, maybe in the first time, you cannot like support them to join any meeting in the beginning
Mhm,
because
mhm,
they need some support in the psychosocial support.
mhm,
Then,
mhm,
like to have more discussion uh, among themselves to like start this point to take more action by themselves. I
yeah,
mean,
that
how
builds the
here
confidence. Yeah, that.
exactly
Yeah,
for
yeah, yeah.
more practice to support them to like share strongly their identity. And here also I can share one thing it's happening currently in Sweden and Syria because what it's happening now I like just find it by another side. It's based on a gap between the Syrian groups after like a long term of the crisis and
Mhm.
how is our community today with
Okay.
a lot of gaps with without any social cohesion initiative previously. So the community now, all the group communities are affected by a long-term crisis, and
Mhm,
we don't have a good relation between them. And here, we cannot invite them to meet or to express, even with the global community, because the most important things we should support them about the mental health, social
mhm,
support, to like feel strongly and confidently about their identity, then
mhm,
they can share. But if you want to support them to join directly, that means you destroyed them, to be honest,
mm.
because
They'll be
they
scarred. They'll be
exactly
scarred to even for the future work. I mean, they'll be put off. They'll be in their own corner. Absolutely. I think that's a very good point. So again, the sector you work in Alaa is absolutely sort of for the past 10, 15 years, we are seeing so much of it. But again, talking about these people who are basically volunteers, isn't it? They work without any title, salary, or any sort of a grant. So what can the external world learn about them when it comes to their knowledge and leadership which they're bringing on the ground, and including likes of yourselves, in terms of, you're going relentlessly sort of solving crisis after crisis on the ground, those little small problems on the ground. So what can we all learn from that, Allah?
the most important things, based on my opinion, self-resilience, how we get it,
Okay.
and how we should like uh, let the local community work and
Okay.
lead,
Mhm.
right? Just not just like depending on the global fund, because I think it's like regardless of the context or country, self-resilience, the most important things, maybe the first one for any like recovery or any systemability.
And this is the most extreme of situation, isn't it? This is the most extreme of the situation where this self-resilience comes into play. But again, you have been on both the sides, so you would be the best person to judge this or look at it. But why do you think these sort of skills are undervalued or overlooked when we are talking about people from these communities?
Because by this, they can lead. They can lead, right? And let me share this example. I remember a woman in Byzantine town in Syria. In Syria, she wasn't part of any NGO or CSO, but she quietly coordinated food distribution for over 100 families, negotiated with the traders, and even helped evacuate injured people from the 0 point. No title, no salary, no title, no salary, but at the same time, she was one of the most effective project managers. You can see her here. You can see her she has a great self-resilience here. And by this way, we have an effective cost for the project led by the community. These are the people who keep communities alive, midwives, informal also, teachers, youth organizers, drivers who cross checkpoints with medicine, elderly people who resolve the disputes, None of them show up in donor reports, right?
Okay, so these are the invisible people, invisible heroes, as we can call it, who actually keep the system working, isn't it?
Exactly, or invisible value.
And
recognize the skills.
You can't train them, can we? We can't train them. We can't train them. They are sort of they look at the context, they look at the situation, and then they just get on with it.
Exactly. But also here, if you can give me 1 minute for this question, here, NGOs, INGOs, and donors should play a unique role, each of them, to support this component. Because here, we don't mean to support these people on behalf of INGOs or INGOs, right?
No, that totally makes sense. But again, thinking from a more sort of independent perspective, you spoke about self-resilience. Can we also shed a small bit of light on the notion of resistance? So, for example, there must be a point where local community says, because dealing with external agencies could be quite draining and challenging as well over a period of time. So there must be a time, or you must have seen instances where a community or group of people sort of resisting that external support and trying to sort of look inwards and say, you know what, we need to build something more internally which works for us, and we are not reliant on external stakeholders. We will make it work among ourselves. So have you seen anything like that? Have you seen any incident of such a thing forming or taking shape?
Let me say, survival is reactive, right? And resistance is proactive, if we want. Right?
Very interesting, yes.
Yes, and here I see resistance every time a local organization pushes back against top-down mandates.
Okay.
Or when youth group says this activity doesn't reflect our priority, or when a local CSO refuses implement a rushed project just to meet a donor deadline. That's reclaiming agency, as you mentioned. And here we have supported organizations to develop their own accountability frameworks, not because donors asked, but because their community expected it, right? And we have helped coalitions and alliances co-author policy briefs, not just sit at the table. We should support them to have that, not just sit at table. The shift from surviving to resisting happens when communities start shaping, right? Not just receiving responses. It's when people realize they have the right to say no, to question and to lead, because in the end they will be responsible. They are the community. And we cannot do anything if I am a donor or NGO. I cannot do anything if they will reject my intervention.
Right? Absolutely. And they have all the right to reject that intervention if it doesn't suit them or they don't like it at all. Yes, absolutely.
And even again, they have the right to say no, right? And even they should and on the other hand, they should focus on the project, not just a project, but also to build their strategy for their strategy response for the community. And I mean here, from surviving to resisting, it's very important to not just focus on the project, but to hold the intervention. We don't want just to collecting the evidence from this project and documented the project. Yes, it's right, a requirement. But also we need to see the impact, a greater impact, more than in individual, separate project. I mean, for the strategy.
From what you are saying, it makes me feel that we need to see beyond the project. And again, when we talk about project in these circumstances, it becomes very transactional, isn't it? Because we are used to seeing, okay, you've got a project, you need to run it. This is the money. These are the people involved. This is what we need to achieve. And that's the end of the story. But what you're trying to say here is we need to see in these circumstances beyond the project. It is not just a project. It's an exercise in community building. It's an exercise in not only taking, giving back as well, isn't it? So it has to be more holistic that way. So my question to you, Alaa, would be, and again, we are now heading into the closing state of our discussion. With all your experience, all these years you work,
yes,
where do we actually need to point the finger, and not in a negative way, but point that finger and say, this is where the mindset needs to change? Because we are not seeing the solving of the problem in the next 5 or 10 years. It looks like the way our world is organized at the moment, we're going to have these issues all over the world. Yeah. And again, I want to be proven wrong. But again, these sort of issues are going to happen in more parts of the world as we see it. So where do we point our fingers and say, okay, we need a change in how we do things? Does it come to the localized way of operating, or does the responsibility lies more with the stakeholders or the external engagers who come in and say, okay, we're going to run this project, or we're going to make the change happen on the ground?
Maybe I can answer based on also the question here. Where is the power?
Yeah.
With who, right?
Yeah.
Because who has the power, can take the first step in that. Yesterday, I posted on LinkedIn about the situation in Gaza, because as always, we are all the time. We just have a conference, we just have a work to speak about decolonizing and localization, but without any action. And you know, I don't want to speak about political, but political control the humanitarian system as all the people, But that doesn't mean we should stop, right? We should see how we can mobilize our service, even the power and resources with the political or with the external stakeholder. I believe, based on my experience, the change starts with the local community.
Okay. Yes.
When
absolutely.
they take their when they take their responsibility, because in the end of day, they will benefit from the aid or from the humanitarian system, right? And without them, we cannot do anything as a global, right? So I believe we the local community can start with this and the change from them, because we don't want to wait the global or external stakeholder to take this action. And again, with a lot of perspective from my side, and thanks for the some and a lot of people globally who try to take this responsibility.
But do you think at the end of the day, do you think it's the sector you're operating in? Again, it requires a lot of innovation. It requires a lot of entrepreneurial thinking. But at the end of the day, do you think it's a thankless sector where there is not enough gratitude or there's not enough sort of recognition of what you guys do?
Yes, because we need the value in the end also.
Yeah. And what do you mean by value? Is it yeah, what does it mean to you? And you are the best place to answer this.
Yes, if I could redefine the value in a crisis response and link also with the enterprise, I would start with this sentence. Value is when a displaced woman and youth can speak in a community meeting without a fear.
Okay.
Value is when a CSO, civil society organization, refuses funding because it contracts with their values or their identity and survives anyway. Value, in my opinion, is when aid exists without collapsing the system it entered, right? Success shouldn't be measured by how many indicators were hit or how many indicators we achieved. It should be about whether the community feels stronger, safer, and more self-determined. We need to move beyond outputs, as you mentioned. We want to move beyond outputs and ask this question. Did our intervention increase trust?
Yeah.
Back to trust. Did it strengthen local leadership? Did it create space for dignity? Based on that, we can speak about that.
Yeah. And I think that's a brilliant point to sort of round off our discussion in terms of how you sort of really redefine the notion of value, because value to us when it comes to entrepreneurship, it's all about the economic side of it. And again, there are so many sort of KPI, the indicators which sort of we need to take to make sure, oh, this system is actually working. But what you just described is exactly what value is in the humanitarian sector. And I think from your own experience, you have seen that. So my last question to you is to, relate to my audience, who listen to this podcast. And they are individuals who are interested in entrepreneurship, who are interested in looking at entrepreneurship in different contexts. What would be your suggestion when it comes to your sector and what they can learn from what your sector does on a day-to-day basis?
I believe, and I fully agree with what I will say. I'm not make a promotion for our sector.
Yeah.
But I believe our sector is the right base for the enterprise and economy, because I believe they are a lot of investment. And I believe if we want, based on our experience, if we want also in our sectors to achieve localization and have a great stories and scores about community led, we need to have a partnership with your audience. We need to have a partnership with the private sectors to have and increase the social capital and to achieve this value. And here we can build the resilience for our sector, and also, again, a lot of investment in our sectors. Today, for example, Saudi Arabic signed around 47 agreement with the new Syrian government to invest in Syria.
But I read about that.
Yes, Syria today is like under the crisis. Why Saudi Arabic will pay a lot of money and invest with a lot of money here? And it's around $7 billion.
Yes.
Because they are like insured, and they believe they are great space to invest, right?
So do you think it's a good thing? It's a good thing or a bad thing?
Sorry?
So do you think it's a positive thing, or is it something which is going to go in places where we'll never see the investment at all?
It's positive things, but we should go carefully and with a great way and methodology, and to have triangulation here between civil society, private sectors, and also the community to achieve the need and desire for each element of those.
Very well said that. So I will leave my audience with saying that there is hope when it comes to humanitarian sector. So if I want to build a career in this sector, there is a real opportunity, because you not only sort of work with your instinct, but there are a lot of soft skills which can be developed as you go along, and you can lead a very innovative and enterprising project or organization which you are part of.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah? Okay. All right. With that, Alaa, we come to an end to this wonderful podcast. Thank you so much for sharing your insights, your views and perspective on everything which was about your sector. But in terms of just looking at broken system, but then there are examples which you came across in terms of, how it is all happening on the ground. And you very well reminded us about the importance of people, importance of trust, importance of, the local community and the way they care about their community. So thank you so much. And to our listeners, please stay very close to the margins, because that's where the most human form of enterprise is actually happening, and people like Alaa is making it work. Thank you so much.